I'm going to be talking about 5 of my most used mental and sort of philosophical thought processes and exercises that I've either discovered or developed over the last 5 years, which have shown me some of the highest highs and the lowest lows when it comes to my own mental health and my own perception on myself and the world around me. And the last one is actually a little bit insane, but it's the one that's helped me the most frequently. So maybe I have a problem. I don't know. So take a minute and really imagine this. Imagine you're 94 years old and you're on your deathbed and you find yourself in the fortunate enough position to have a little bit more time to reflect, to digest the moment fully, and to be around your family. And speaking of family, you're laying there and your granddaughter comes in and she's the sweetest little thing in the world. And you're having a conversation with her about your life and the future and what she's got going on. And you arrive at this sentiment. Here at the end, looking back in hindsight, I wish more than anything that I could go back to the year 2025. I was 32 years old. I was young. I was healthy. I was vibrant. I had my family around me. We were building our business. And yeah, things were hard. Things were uncertain. There was a lot of scary stuff going on in 2025. But I had time. I had ability. I had independence. There was so much more potential for my future than there is right now here at 94 years old. And I wish I could go back and live it more fully satisfied than I did when I was actually there. And so in this moment, your granddaughter giggles and looks at you in the eye and says, "Grandpa, you can do that. Just open your eyes." And in that moment, through some magical force or some universal intervention, you open your eyes and you are transported back to the moment that you are in currently. You're probably looking at your phone, watching this video, the TV, the PC screen, whatever. You're back. And maybe you're taking a break and you're about to go back to watching your kid or go back to work, or you're preparing for a tough conversation to have later. None of that stuff weighs heavy on you anymore, because at death's door, this is exactly where you wanted to be. So if through that exercise you were able to feel something, hold on to that feeling and try to continue to live the rest of your day, the rest of your week, the rest of your life relative to that feeling. Because if you're lucky, eventually you will be 94 years old and you will be talking to someone on your deathbed about the previous life that you wish you could be living right now. In all of that fog of negativity, it can become really easy and almost like the default setting to let the positivity in our lives slip through our fingers, even when those positive aspects can be linked to the things that we view as negative or are bringing us down. Things like working in a high-stress job or owning a similarly heavy business. That career, that business, is a valuable and positive part of your identity. The stress of raising kids paired one-to-one to the bliss, the joy, the wonder of watching this little human that you've created evolve into new versions of themselves over the years. Any sort of self-redefinition. These are all moments that are steeped in uncertainty, steeped in stress, but so often when we get a little bit of hindsight, some time between those moments and where we are now, we see those moments with a bit of that positive nostalgia where it was a wide open situation where anything could happen. There was a lot of unknown, but there was also a lot of potential. We have all been there watching a movie, either for the first time or the 100th time, where we're watching the protagonist make some sort of decision or chain of decisions that we absolutely know are not the right things to be doing. We, as the audience, know exactly where the protagonist should go to find that best outcome, because we probably have a little more context on the situation than the protagonist does, being in the middle of the story. It's so obvious. Go chase the girl down at the airport. Use that secret power to defeat the villain that's in front of you, or for the love of God, do not go in that dark hallway because you heard some kind of a noise, you absolute dunce. So, the exercise is, if your life was a movie or a TV show that an audience had been engaged with and watching for the entirety of your life, what would they be screaming at the screen for you to do or not do next? What is that action or path that your audience has been craving for you to follow, but either you feel like you're not prepared to do so or you're too scared to do so, but your audience has been ready for you to take that step for the last 2 seasons? This process is helpful for making the glaringly obvious best next step, or maybe worst next step, a little bit more accessible to understand in your mind. Because we all know the feeling of watching a character go down with a ship when there was an easy out that they just weren't aware of at the time. And with that in mind, it can become clear to us that maybe there's options that we don't see. Maybe there's options that are more viable to us than we initially thought, or maybe the path that we're currently going down is a little bit more detrimental to us than what we can immediately perceive. Imagine the moment you're born, you're assigned a human to take care of. For their entire life, you are responsible for guiding every decision that that human makes. What they should eat, what projects they should pursue and take on, how they should be spoken to, how they should speak to themselves, what relationships to pursue, what they should believe, how much they should sleep, and every other aspect, both minute and large, in their life, you are responsible for directing them. So if it was your responsibility and privilege to get to take care of this human, what kind of decisions would you make on a day-to-day basis? What kind of mindsets would you want to instill in them? How would you plan to speak to this human to ensure that they had self-belief, self-confidence, self-efficacy? Your goal is to make decisions that would allow this human that you're responsible to take care of to lead the happiest, healthiest, most fulfilled and balanced life as possible in this very unbalanced world. And you're very smart. I'm sure you already understand where I'm going with this. This is objective reality. This is the life that you were given. When you were born, you took the reins of that human. You, the human. You were given the greatest control over the outcomes of your life that any other person could possibly imagine having. All of this is under your direct control, especially as an adult. When we're younger, your parents or guardians, your friends and teachers, your community and culture, yes, they shape the foundation, the road that you're driving upon, essentially, as you control this human into young adulthood. But as we get older, if we're to cling to those foundational systems and communities and ideas without even the consideration of anything outside of that, that would be like taking the keys that we have to ourselves, throwing them out the window, and just trusting that autopilot will get us where we want to be. And the concept of autopilot leading to success doesn't exist. So then the open-ended rhetorical at the end of this idea becomes, why is it so easy, or easy for many of us, to become a natural caretaker of our own children? And yet it's so hard for us to meet those same needs for ourselves as individuals, as the one human over which we have absolute control. You as a human make roughly 35,000 choices a day. Anyone who has been mildly conscious of their own personal journey and trying to do better in their own lives has probably wrestled with this idea that we know the right things to do. We know what decision out of each one of those categories is going to lead to the best outcome for us in the future. And yet, we so often make the worst decision out of the two. And there are so many psychological and physiological factors that go into willpower and decision-making and self-control, and we're not going to get into all of that today. What we are going to get into is a mindset that's been helping me out a little bit lately. So many times in stories and mythology, there's two voices within us. There's one of reason, of good, of order, and there's one of chaos and maybe perceived as evil. I think of those two voices both as being equally and fully me. Their presence representing that balance internally between the things that I know would reap better rewards, although maybe they're a little harder, they're going to take a little longer, and those things that are immediately pleasurable, those things that will give me the instant dopamine hit without much work involved. And so I like to add one more version. There is the right decision version of me, there's the wrong decision version of me, and in the middle, there's a more neutral version of me. And I think I identify with that version more often than not. This is the amalgamation, the combination of the two extremes on this spectrum. And if I'm defining what my inner voice is most of the time, it is that middle ground version of me. This is the me that really wants to do good, and really wants to achieve and create and find success and be a good person and delay my gratification and go to bed on time and work out and all these things. And it's also in part the version that also does like instant gratification, likes quick pleasures, likes to drink, likes to stay up late, likes to waste time playing video games too often, likes to procrastinate. So versions 1 and 3, they are caricatures of my best and worst self. And version 2 is actually me, the combination of the light and the dark. The separation of those elements of my psyche from who I am as an identity helps me to understand on both sides of the spectrum that a decision made does not define who I am. It helps me not to feel as hyper defeated if I make a less than optimal decision, because in part that was more so the negative version of my psyche, the more procrastinating, instant gratification version of my psyche that made that decision, and I can separate myself from it to a healthy degree. On the other side of the spectrum, if I have an excellent day, I'm not as eager, willing, or able to just write my problems off as I've figured it out. I can't always expect that to be the norm, and that's a healthy thing to remember. So playing with the balance between these three versions of myself has helped me more so to understand my own relationship to the things that I struggle to do, the things that I struggle not to do, and how to approach those things, and having almost kind of a conversation with myself as those choices loom. Okay, brace yourself, because I've saved my most morbid, but also my most revisited idea for last here. This world can suck sometimes. It can be really scary, horrible, tragic, ugly, painful, cruel in a nearly infinite myriad of small, medium, and large ways. So when I get sucked into the rabbit hole of doomsday thinking, existential crisis, worrying about the future, both short-term and long-term, oftentimes centered around things that maybe don't matter as much as I think that they do, there's one thought that continues to pop into my head that helps soothe me a good bit every single time. The heat death of the universe. Hang on, bear with me. I know this is weird. When the world seems beyond saving, when my personal circumstances leave me feeling helpless and hopeless, when it feels like catastrophe is right around the corner, again, whether it's in either a small or a large scale, my mind retreats back to the idea that in 10 to the 100 years, which is a time frame that we can't even conceptualize, there will be no energy left in the entire universe. All the stars will have burnt out, all of the galaxies will have dissipated and distanced themselves from each other, such that there is nothing left to look at. No new substances or planets or structures will ever be synthesized again. It'll just be dark and quiet and still. Just nothing. And what comes with nothing? No taxes, no health concerns, no drama with friends or rivals, no car troubles, no bad expansions for World of Warcraft, no wars, no pain, no injustice, no impending doom, no fear of the unknown. So zooming back into our own current problems, they definitely still exist, they still matter, and pursuing solutions to them is still a hugely and utmost valuable pursuit. But sometimes removing the permanent, universal, existential weight of these problems, it immediately helps me to feel that sensation of relief in my gut. In the end, all of this will be dust and gone. And that end version of this universe, whether it's some sort of paradise or nothing at all, will render our current problems absolutely irrelevant. And weirdly, for me, holding on to that idea keeps me from freaking out more than I need to sometimes. So this is probably the heaviest video that I've ever made. I don't really know where it belongs or if it's going to reach anybody, but I just kind of felt pulled to share these ideas. They were heavy on my mind today. I actually woke up kind of having a bad day, and thinking through some of these things and actually just putting these down to writing to share in this video made me feel a lot better. So my hope is that one or more of these can be a useful thought exercise for you in your own life. And if that works for one person, then this video will have been worth it. Whether it's something on this list or absolutely not something on this list, it's really important to find some sort of a process that works for you to work through your own mental health ups and downs. Let me know if any of these make sense at all to you, if you've thought through the same thing, or if you think that this is all just completely ridiculous, especially the last one. And we'll see you in the next one.